So, there's a new Star Wars trailer out. Some of you would like me to comment on it, and so I shall. Now, it is a short teaser trailer, which means there's not that much to say about it. But being long-winded as I am, I'm sure I will put that to the test. It is the trailer for Rogue One, a Star Wars story, coming to a theater near you at some point. I don't really know when, and I don't really care that much because I'm probably going to watch it on video, given what Disney delivered to me with The Force Awakens. It centers around the story of a woman named Jen in her quest to steal the Death Star plans. It takes place right before Episode 4, the original Star Wars 77 movie, and centers around stealing of the Death Star plans. Now, I'm going to give you some big plot spoilers right now. Massive, massive plot spoilers, and I'm not going to leak how I came across these plot spoilers, but I'm going to give them to you. So if you don't want the plot spoilers, you got to turn this video right off and go to someone else, okay? So I'm presuming if you see this, you want the plot spoilers. What's the big plot spoilers? So, our team of rebels, the team of rebels that are assembled, against the odds, they infiltrate the Imperial base. One team member does have to sacrifice himself for the greater good, and the female lead will succeed in getting the Death Star plans. How do I know this is true? Well, other than the tropic stuff I mentioned. Because Luke destroys the Death Star in Episode 4. We already know the outcome of the story before the movie even hits the screen. This is the problem with prequels, right? And it's a bigger problem with a story like this where the outcome is absolutely certain. We know that from the trailer that it's the Death Star plans. And we know that they have to succeed at getting the Death Star plans because Luke needs them to blow up the Death Star in the next movie. This is not quite like the prequel trilogy. In the prequel trilogy, we kind of knew where we're going. We're like, Anakin will become Darth Vader. We knew that plot element. We didn't quite know how they were going to get there. I knew Palpatine would be the Emperor, but I wasn't sure how all that execution would happen. And I guess that's kind of what kept it interesting, right? Is the execution part. In this, it's one movie. We know the conclusion of this one movie. The execution part might be interesting. I don't know. But definitely there's not going to be quite as much tension as in a movie where you don't know the outcomes. So I will say that right now. That is part of the problems. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of what is in the trailer. What you have is a standard garbage Hollywood movie trailer. I thought it, if you didn't have the visuals, it could be any movie. So if you took those visuals out, it could be any movie. You have this voiceover. You have two voiceovers on top of a bunch of random, disconnected visual sequences. And the visual sequences are there to let you know this is a freaking Star Wars movie. And the voiceover is there to do two things. So the first voiceover is, let me describe this new character, Jin. She is a rebel. She's a rebel, and she's got caught by the Empire, and somehow we have her, and we're going to put her to work. You're a criminal, and you're working for us. Second one. It's tense. If you get caught, you will be tortured, and bad things will happen to you. Tension. Tension. All right, that's the two voiceovers. And now if you took those out of context, you wouldn't know what movie they were from. You'd think that they could be from like the next Triple X movie, like Triple X, his girlfriend, right? It could be anything. So the visuals are what let you know it's a Star Wars movie. Now what you see for the visuals are just a bunch of shots of the old aesthetic. You have a shot of the inside of the Rebel base, which is cool. Right, and then you have the shot of like an X-wing silhouette, and you have a shot of like some Imperial walkers blowing stuff up at the end, and you have some stormtroopers getting blown up, and you have a dude like killing dudes with rifles with like a hand-to-hand thing. It's all just stuff from the fourth movie, and because it takes place right before the fourth movie, that's expected. It's very expected, and it's not really a problem. But what it makes me, in the context of everything, what it makes me think is like Disney executives when they bought Star Wars, like sat down and they're like, guys, what are we going to do for the Star Wars fans? It's like, you know what? Star Wars fans they're really into stormtroopers, man. I've seen, there's like this whole troop of guys who cosplay as stormtroopers. All fans must be into stormtroopers and nothing but stormtroopers. And so it's like they thought the aesthetic of Star Wars is what makes Star Wars. And like, yeah, I will say part of it is, yeah, but like the stormtrooper aesthetic. So this is all about stormtroopers, apparently. I think we have a character who's like a former stormtrooper as well, which just is just sort of like keeps it going. And Force Awakens, same aesthetic, right? And I kind of wish they would have done is I kind of wish they would have made Rogue One before they made any other movies. Like they bought it and then they just like made Rogue One right away. Let's give the fans who were big fans of the original trilogy, let's get them what they want. Let's give them a well-made Star Wars story that takes place in the timeline that they like and has all the aesthetics that they like. And then from that reaction, they could have figured out how to do something new and interesting with Force Awakens. As it was, Force Awakens was just, episode 4 again, right? But way worse. I didn't like Force Awakens, in case you guys didn't see my review on that. So I kind of wish they would have made Rogue One first, and then we could have just had a new, interesting story for episode 7 instead of what we got. But we didn't, so now we get more of our focusing on the Death Star. Everything's the Death Star, and it's like, yeah, maybe the Death Star's not part. It's like stormtroopers and the Death Star is what Star Wars is about, guys. There's two of the original 3 have Death Stars, and there's stormtroopers in all of them. That must be what Star Wars is about. And lightsabers. Of course, this movie I don't think will actually have lightsabers. I think I've read this, like, this is going to be about the people on the ground. There's no Jedis in it. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's a cool approach. Now, a lot of people said this is like fan fiction, and it is a lot like fan fiction, because if you look at fan fiction, most fan fiction kind of falls in the cracks between like the main sequence of canon. So you have like the main movies, and most fan fiction is going to kind of be between. There was a fan fiction movie recently that I will do a review of that was like, Darth Maul. So we have a little one about Darth Maul, and this movie's kind of in that crack, right? It takes place right before episode 4. It's like, I'm curious how we stole the Death Star plans. Let's make a movie about that. But it's not like the how is not so important as like the why and the conclusion of do you, right? Why are we rebelling, and do we succeed? That's like the elements of a good plot, not just the how. Like the how is important, that's the execution, but the goal is important too. The uncertainty of the goal is a big part of what creates tension in a story, and this goal is certain. So that's kind of what I think. It does kind of make me think of fan fiction. So I feel like they should have just done this one, given people some of that fan fiction experience, and then made something really good for Force Awakens. But that's not really what we get. Other things, we have another female lead and another black male actor. As far as I'm concerned, some people say lightning never strikes twice. I'm like, twice is just a coincidence. Thrice is a pattern. So I don't, whatever. They want to do a female lead in 2 movies in a row. Okay, I got it. Doesn't really matter to me, because like the sex of the lead is not going to determine whether the movie is good or bad. It's just not. It's fine to have a female lead if that's something that you're interested in. I felt like Rey, her in Force Awakens, the fact that she was female, that was just an aesthetic choice. Like you could have had a male actor do that part and it would have been the same. Other than like the awkward asking if she had a boyfriend of like Finn in like one line would have been weird, but they would have changed that. So literally, Rey's femininity is completely aesthetic. She has no female perspective, and I don't know if this character will have female perspective either. We'll wait and see about that. So I don't think it really matters that much. What matters is whether the execution's good. I can't say whether it's going to be good or bad just yet. I can't judge a whole thing by a trailer, but on the wider, it's kind of like, all right, we're going to get more of the original trilogy aesthetic. What I really wish they would have done, instead of do this Rogue One kind of set within the original trilogy time frame sort of thing, I wish they would have done a story from like Knights of the Old Republic period, like 2,000 years in the past. From the Tour Online or Knights of the Old Republic kind of timeline, because then it's still it's still somewhat familiar. It's still the universe we're somewhat familiar with. I'm more familiar with with KOTOR than most people, perhaps, because I really do love that particular game. But we get new aesthetics, we get new locations, we have a different political dynamic. We have like the Sith Empire, which is its own thing. We have more of like a direct conflict between forces. We just have more possibilities, and the main thing is we don't know what the outcomes are. We haven't yet figured out what the outcomes are if we did a trilogy of like Old Republic movies. And that's really what I think would be cool, is to have some kind of uncertain outcome. But that's not what they did. I think because their marketing executives think that Star Wars has to be exactly like the original trilogy, or people won't accept it and won't make any money. It has to have stormtroopers. Like, that's really what I feel like they thought, is like, man, we gotta make sure that whatever we do with Star Wars, it's exactly like what we did before, or what George Lucas did before, or people aren't going to buy it. They're just going to get mad like they did with the prequels. And it's like, okay, so that's what it is now. I am probably not going to watch it in theaters. Why? Because Force Awakens was not good, and therefore I no longer trust Disney to make Star Wars movies. I may watch Marvel movies in the theaters, because I don't think I have different expectations for those. And all that kind of stuff. But I don't trust them to make a good Star Wars movie anymore. And so, yeah, I don't know if I will review Rogue One unless like I get free tickets, or someone begs me to go with him when it's in theaters. Otherwise, you guys will probably have to wait till it comes out on Blu-ray for me to weigh in on it. But I do appreciate always the views. I appreciate the attention. I appreciate the suggestions. I appreciate you watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, all of that good stuff. Please feel free to visit my websites, dbspress.com, davidvstewart.com. I will have them linked down below. You can read my books at dbspress.com, and I do have a new run going right now of one of my books, so hopefully that'll be fun and interesting for you if you choose to read some of my original work. I'm always appreciative of that. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great, great evening.